Okay, so let's make a start. I'd like to welcome you all. I'm Caroline Hodgson and I'm president of the Bradford Textile Society. I'm very pleased to be able to welcome you to our first online design seminar and awards ceremony. The Bradford Textile Society has been giving awards for the past 99 years, and it is unique in its breadth of categories. And we're delighted to say that we've had, again, over 1,000 entries this year from students across the UK. And I'd like to congratulate the tutors and the entrants for the exceptionally high presentation standards. It's been really hard judging this year, but yeah, the level of work has been exceptional. I'd also like to thank the sponsors for their participation and their generous support, without which this competition would not take place. And also, obviously, to the prize winners. You should have received your prize money and certificates by now, but if not, please do contact our secretary, Sue Geldard, and she can look into that. And finally, I'd like to say a thank you to Sue Geldard and Jill Craven, who have been instrumental in moving the competition online this year. I think hopefully everyone has found it a smoother process, and it's very helpful to be able to enter work online. So I'm delighted to introduce our guest speaker for this afternoon, Katie Grenier, who is the Creative Talent and Network Director from Pentland Brands and is World President of the Textile Institute. Following Katie's address, there will be a live Q&A session, and this will be chaired by Dr. Mark Sumner, lecturer in sustainability, retail and fashion at the School of Design at the University of Leeds. So please post questions in the Q&A and Mark will put these to Katie. If you have any technical issues, please put these in the chat, but if we could keep all the questions in the Q&A, and then Mark will have those at hand. Following this, we will then have a 10-minute break prior to the sponsors of the design competition announcing the winners of their sections and images of the award-winning entries. So I'm delighted to hand over to Katie now. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Caroline. I just want to say that I've seen your work and I've heard so much about this competition, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and a little bit about our business. So first of all, I'm just going to try sharing the screen to make sure it works. Share. Can everyone see that? Caroline, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah. So thank you so much for having me, and what a pleasure and a delight. And to be fair, this has been in organisation for quite some time, and so I know how prestigious and how important this competition is. I've seen your work, and yeah, it's so impressive, and so I'm delighted to be here today. So let me just start by clicking that. So oh, I've gone too quick. I've always had a passion for fashion and colour. From really early on, my mum said that I was a bit of a crazy dresser, and holiday trips to Wales, I would always buy a Welsh bonnet and wear it constantly. In fact, this is how mad I am with the Welsh bonnet. On here. Like, I loved about Wales that you could actually just wear this the whole time. And so whenever I go to Wales, I buy myself a Welsh bonnet. So yeah, but you can see that I've had some good haircuts through my years. And I love that people can have their sense of style and own it. And I think even more now, it's okay to have your sense of style and not look like anyone else. So this is my dad, Frankie Fraser. Frankie Fraser was my absolute inspiration. My dad was a graphic designer. And so in the days before computers, my dad used to have a drawing board. You can see him at the bottom there on his drawing board. And I used to sit under his drawing board and pretend to be him. I just wanted to colour and draw all day. And one day I was sitting under his drawing board and I stole his scalpel and it went right into my leg and took a little bit of my leg out. And my dad was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I just wanted to be like you." And he said, "If you want to be like me, you have to learn the craft. And in order to learn the craft, you have to learn the tools." And so that was then put me on the journey to learn the craft. And I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew that I wanted to design. And I feel like I'm so privileged to know so early on that I wanted to be in the creative industries, but I didn't even know what that looked like. This is my mum, Jackie. Jackie didn't want me to be a designer because my dad was never home on time because he always had a deadline. And so she was like, "Why don't you become a PA? Why don't you do this? Why don't you?" And was always saying I could do whatever I want. But she never wanted me to be a designer because she always said that it wasn't a 9-to-5 job. And how right was she? Even then, it wasn't a 9-to-5 job, and it certainly isn't one now. So I studied at North Essex School of Art and Design, which was Colchester. And I left school and basically went straight on a general art and design course. And that was 2 years. I mean, I was 16 when I left school. And I used to just love painting big pictures. I then went on, after finding out that I thought I wanted to do textiles, but the general art and design gave me the opportunity to try so many things. And I loved them all. But then I went to Liverpool because I'd gone there on we went to visit family friends, and I loved the city. And it was just after the Toxteth riots. And I thought that it had such an edge to it. It was just the most incredible city. It was palpable, the energy there. And I went to Liverpool, I got into Liverpool School of Art, and I just thought, this is the way forward. I loved every minute about it. And I sort of started doing, well, my course was fine art printed textiles, and I loved doing just the most massive paintings and then turning them into prints and scarves and, well, everything. I did lots and lots of things for the Cream nightclub, lots of banners, but everything. I took my art into everything I possibly could. When I left Liverpool, I set up my own business. It's called Squinty Totty. And this was me. I got sponsored by the Princess Youth Trust and PYBT. And it was brilliant because they were always hosting mentoring sessions, seminars, anything that could make me learn more. And I shared a studio with my dad, and quite often I would have my own exhibition space and then just sell large scale prints. And I then also won an award called Tex Print, which was brilliant because it made me go to Mauritius, and it made me look into commerciality. So my brother worked in a bank in London, and he used to bring back all the cool magazines. And I used to spend days just going through the magazines, flicking through and sort of seeing what was cool. And there was a brand called Red or Dead. And I literally thought they were the coolest brand I'd ever seen. The way they did print, the way they did colour, it was reverent. It had social comment. It talked about protest and it talked about what was happening in those days. And I just loved it. So I sort of stalked Wayne Hemingway because it was the days before Wi-Fi, internet, that you could easily source someone. I would just started thinking, well, where are their offices? So I went down to their offices, and I hung outside for a bit. I must have been like 17, 18. And Wayne came out, and I said, oh, I really want to work for you, Wayne. And he said, well, everyone wants to work for me. And I said, I really do. And he just said, well, if you want to work for me, I need to find someone who's mad in England. And that was it. And then he went off in his car. And I was like, oh, well, what does that mean? Anyway, so I went to Oxford Street and came up the tube, and there was this man there at the top of the tube, and he had a placard that said, less passion for less protein. And I thought, oh my God, he's mad in England. So I took his picture, I went and I bought his 12p booklet, and I went and got it developed, the photos developed, and then went back to Wembley and said to Wayne, I waited for him because he wasn't back yet. I waited for him, and I was nervously waiting for him. Don't think that I was brassy or bold or anything, because I was absolutely bricking myself. And I showed him the pictures of Stanley Green, and he said, you better come in. And that is where my, I suppose, career sort of really started. So I started working for Red or Dead and doing prints and graphics and coming up with stories that were about social comment and irreverency and cheeky and mischievous, and it was all the things that I liked to design, and I was able to put them into commercially not commercial prints. They weren't commercial, but they were front page news, and I loved that. So this time, which was 1996, and this whole print was about Worst Wedgwood, which was actually influenced by my Auntie Kath and my Nana and all their things. And we sent models down the catwalk because lots of buildings, which was some of the ugliest in London, had been given preservation orders. And we also were talking about mental health. Now, this is 1996, so this topic has been going on a long time, and we sort of imagined these models of sort of going crazy in these really ugly 20-story buildings. And so the whole catwalk show was about this sick face, that it was about mental health issues, but it was also about preservation orders, and we became the sick face of British fashion. So my dad sent me out to get the normal Sunday paper that was like 50p at the time. And my dad had given me £5. And I think I came back with every paper, and I was like, Dad, look, I'm the sick face of British fashion. And he was like, well, that's nothing to be proud of. So it was an absolute delight, though, working for Red or Dead, because it was all the things I loved, sending up brand names. And also I'm so inspired by my nan and my auntie, and like co-op stamps and love hearts, and I just loved the aesthetic of Red or Dead. So I was working on lots of other projects at the same time, and one of the things that I wanted to do was work for French designers. And so I wrote to every French designer that I knew, and I just almost put on a letter. It said something like, I will be at your studio on this time at this day. If it's inconvenient, please telephone and let me know. Yours sincerely, Katie Greenyer, Squinty Totty. And I sent these letters off and then booked myself onto a Sega bus trip, which, for those who don't know, is an over 50s bus trip. But I didn't know that at the time, and I booked myself on it, and I was probably 22. And I was the youngest person, obviously, on there, but it was £79 return to France, and it was in the week, and it ticked all the boxes that I needed. And when I got on the bus, there was this woman called Margaret who was just like, hello, love. And I had the craziest hair, and I had all my things from my portfolio, and I got on the bus, and I was just like, let's go. And to my delight, the old ladies and gentlemen on the bus absolutely looked after me. And when I turned up one morning at Yves Saint Laurent's studio, I got totally kicked out. So I had about 3 hours to wait until I saw my next appointment, which was Christian Lacroix. And he invited me in, and he met with me, and he then asked me to work with him. And so I stayed in Paris. And I suppose my lesson from that story is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And although it makes you feel uncomfortable and difficult, which I did feel uncomfortable and difficult, I literally was living my best life, and I was doing stuff that I dreamed about doing. So then I came back because something really, I suppose, very sad happened, that my mum had cancer, Jackie, and she died probably about 6 months later. I was 21 when she died. And so my whole life had sort of fallen in on me. But I thought, well, I love Red or Dead. I love footwear. I love the aesthetic. And so started back working with Red or Dead again. Not that I'd ever really left them, but it sort of seemed to be my home. And then in 1996, Pentland Brands brought Red or Dead, and I became part of the acquisition. Now I'm just going to run you a quick show reel of some of the work that we do at Pentland Brands, and then I'll explain about them. Hopefully this will work. Oh, didn't want to do that. So this is the brands that they own. So there's Berghaus, we own 100%, Kangaroos, Boxfresh, Lacoste, Endura, Mitre, Canterbury, Ellesse, Speedo, Red or Dead, CVs. And Lacoste is actually a joint venture, and Kickers is, we are the footwear license, the UK footwear license. So they are the brands that we own, and it's a 4th generation family business, and I'm very proud to have worked there for 25 years this year. So yes, so one of the things that absolutely I'm inspired by is making moments that matter in people's lives. So ensuring that our products have emotional connections to the consumers, and employing the right people who are specialists, and increasing margins so detail remains, so that actually we have all the points in there that our consumers need. And we have really focused design teams, and I'm privileged enough now as part of my job to go actually out and recruit and find the right designers to work across our brands. And in doing so, I support education, and I'm absolutely passionate about young people. Some of the things, well, just young people's careers. I mean, if you're from a background that has never had design in your family, how do you know that you can get a job in this incredible industry? I was so lucky because I had Frankie Fraser who helped me and showed me that there is a job to design. So one of the things that I do is I visit universities, probably over 30 within the UK, but I also work with FIT in New York, and so many international universities. And we issue live briefs, we do tea and talent with lecturers, we do speaker talks and all different things. But I'm really, really privileged to have the position to meet so many young talented designers. And what's really important is the grassroots, you know, getting young people when they're literally just sketching and learning how to draw and thinking that this is something that they're really good at, and capturing that just raw talent and making sure that it's sort of channeled in the right direction. And we do lots and lots of work placements and primary school visits and briefs, because then you're capturing someone and hopefully one day they will come and work for us. So within Pentland, I run something as well called the Design Pool, which is a 1-year programme. And the design poolers get paid £22,000, and they can be from any different discipline. They don't have to have gone to university, but they have to have the X factor. And I find these from all different channels. And I started it in 2003, so I've had over 200 now alumni that have come through the design pool. And it's about just nurturing and nourishing young designers, being a support service to all our brands, and just a fresh ideas, putting fresh ideas into our brands, and actually giving a different point of view, a different voice. So I talk about the alumni because it's actually quite important. That it's great when someone comes in and learns from us, but it's also okay if they go to another brand and learn more. But the hope is always that they'll come back, and maybe they come back as senior designers, but I really love it when we have some young talent into our brands, and then they leave, go somewhere else and learn something more, and then come back. And so one of the things that I got tasked with in 2000 was to actually start designing our headquarters. And this came about because we were looking at redoing our whole London, North London headquarters. And so I worked with architects Rock Townsend, and we developed I suppose, a community, a proposition that basically won the British Council of Office Awards and the best place to work. And it opened in 2003. And since then, I've gone on to, I suppose, develop and work on the Nottingham office, our Sunderland office, our Hong Kong, our New York office, our Vietnam office, and our Paris office. And it's just making the right working conditions for to get the best out of our people. And so COVID has been a really interesting situation in terms of how we work now in teams, and how we've worked remotely, and now coming back together, how is the workplace going to feel and look? So it's a project that I'm currently working on. So I love working with charity and community, and I'm a trustee of the National Saturday Club, which goes into universities every Saturday and inspires 12 to 16-year-olds. In-kind direct, we work a lot with a lot of our products, and Amy Wine Foundation, Churchill Prize, and I'm a Graduate Fashion Week mentor. One of the things that also we need to do, is ensuring that our designers are always up to speed with the latest technology. And we work a lot with Adobe in terms of training, so that we're learning the latest in terms of programs. And it's a great thing because we can actually learn from each other. We also inspire each other, but also it always ends hopefully in a cocktail, which is always really lovely, because then you have camaraderie and networking, and you get to meet everyone from all different brands and all different teams. And we've been so lacking on this lately with COVID. So it feels like we're at the start of something new again, when we're all coming back into the office together. And with emotional connections to consumers, we develop quite a few direct consumer propositions. And these were two that I worked on at Somerset House. One was called Design Frontiers, and it was about the cathedral of product, how product starts off and the initial ideas, and how the flat patterns almost look like cathedral. And then there was another proposition where we talked about mental health and getting in the outdoors with Berghaus, and just what the outdoors gave you the open space to actually free your mind. And if you've got the right kit then actually it doesn't matter what the weather is. It's open space, and you're free to actually do what you want and clear your mind of all the malloy and all the sound. So I have got some tips here for undergraduates, and they are dress code. And this one's really important. You need to be yourself. Think about the company you're interviewing with. Don't just wear a suit because your mum said so. And I've had people that have come in for interviews and said, oh, my mum told me to wear a suit, and they feel they can't actually speak about their work because their mum told them to wear a suit, and actually they said on their and in their portfolio that they were a sneaker freak. Research who's interviewing you and what they do in the company, and it's really important. Try not to wear competitor brands or be completely logoed up, especially if you're sort of going to a competitor brand. I love to see your sketchbooks, your working, your drawings, to see how you've got to an idea. I want to get inside your brain. I want to see how you've done it. What inspires you? And it's always really lovely, especially in these times when things have been so difficult to be inspired, to actually see that you've visited, you've gone on podcasts, webinars, and you've seen virtual stuff, because it's so easy just to give up. So always stay inspired. Confidence is needed when presenting your work. You know, if you don't like something in your portfolio, don't put it in. I can tell, I can sniff out confidence, and don't show things that you're not proud of. And always think about positive points. What were the positive? Even if a project was really hard, what were the things that you learned from it? And be prepared. Check where the office is, check how long it's going to take you, always leaving plenty of time. There's nothing worse than turning up at an interview and you're absolutely stressed out because you're late or you're at the wrong gate. Make sure that you've read the brief, make sure that you've answered everything that has been sent to you in the deck or the pack or whatever they sent to you, because then at least you know that you've done your best. Breathe and smile. So many people look like they're going to absolutely choke out because they can't breathe. It's so lovely when you've just got there, you're all confident, you know your portfolio is on point, and that you can actually just make a lasting impression. Always apply early for placements. I would say 6 months in advance. If you know that you want to work for a company, let them know, you know, like, if you need to stalk them a little bit, then do it, because no one's going to come to you if they don't know that you're about. So make sure as well that you don't tech speak, because I'm not your mate. I'm not yet your mate, but one day, hopefully I will be your mate. Keep busy and inspired. Enter competitions. ArtsRed always have brilliant competitions on their website. And volunteer and do placements and get involved with stuff. You know, it keeps your mind so creative and active, and, you know, you'll have stuff to talk about. Ensure your CV packs a visual punch. You're a designer, you clearly have an incredible set of skills. So make sure that your CV looks like it does, because then it won't just get discounted because it doesn't look creative. Make it catch my eye. So I thought with COP26 coming up and just everything going on about sustainability, I thought I would just talk a little bit about it, and also knowing that I'm going to get grilled with some questions, I thought what might be quite good is to actually play our positive business video from 2019. So much has changed since then, but I think it's really nice to watch it, especially for me, because I can see where we were.
Taking action for people and our planet is no longer someone else's responsibility.
Creating a positive impact is no longer a choice, it's a necessity.
It has never been more critical for us to accelerate our positive business commitments.
We must take action. Globalization and technology have made us more connected, but also driven us further apart.
The need to be inclusive is overwhelming.
We are building
and championing diversity and inclusion in our workplaces and through our brands.
There are 2 billion people globally who are overweight or obese, and 1 in 4 people are affected by mental health issues.
We are creating products that encourage better health, well-being and confidence.
12 million people around the world are forced into work. Millions endure inadequate working conditions, and 3 billion are living on less than $2 a day.
We are increasing our efforts to improve labour rights,
empower workers and support the communities in which we operate. Our industry is responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions every year.
In the EU alone, total packaging waste amounts to 87 million tonnes.
That's 170 kilos per person per year.
we will reduce our carbon footprint by 25%.
And send zero waste to landfill by 2025. We will work to ensure all our packaging is recyclable or compostable, and we will be carbon neutral by 2050.
Around 20% of the world water waste comes from fabric dyeing and manufacturing treatments. We will work with our factories to reduce our chemical and water usage.
Our industry generates 4% of the world's waste. That's 92 million tonnes each year, and 57% ends up in landfill.
We are focusing on improving the sustainability, durability and efficiency of our materials, and we will collaborate with others to give our products a second life. It is time to use our influence so that no one is left behind.
We have the power to change this story, and it is up to us how it ends. It is time to take action for people and our planet, and to focus on our purpose as a positive business.
So some of the thoughts for the future. In 2032, Pentland's going to be 100 years old. And so it's really important to us that we become carbon neutral by 2030, if not before, for some of our brands. So here are some of the thoughts for the future. We've set our values, given the chance to stop and take stock. Designers are asking, what kind of growth do you need in this business? Let's reinvent or design things that benefit society and life, not just things for the sake of things. Quarantine on consumption, getting used to living with fewer possessions and not travelling, make, do, amend, as the virus and Brexit disrupts global supply chains and transport networks. I've always loved, I think I'm privileged because I've always loved buying from charity shops and secondhand, and more, I think it was unbeknown to me, it was more about vanity and not having the same frock as somewhere else. But did I know then that I would be living a sustainable shopping habits? I don't think I did know, but I'm so proud of the stuff that I have in my wardrobe. Those best positioned for the future, if they can survive the present, may be the independent local shops and the most nimble brands. Customers may be less inclined to go into large department stores and malls if they can avoid them. They may find that shops around the corner is fine for retail therapy or go online. And my local shops where I live have totally upped their game. I mean, there's everything in there from local vegetables and flowers and crafts. And I've literally enjoyed over the last year shopping in my local shop. Technology and digital innovation will rule. Robots, click and collect, QR codes, showrooming and next day delivery, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, virtual tours, sports, exhibitions and shows. Contactless interfaces and interactions, strengthen digital infrastructure, access to people via webinars that wouldn't have happened pre-COVID. I was useless on Teams before COVID. I would use it if I had to use it, and I would rather go and see people. Now, that doesn't say that I don't rather go and see people, but look on how far technology has moved on. It is absolutely incredible. Make better, make less, local, not global, fair wages and working conditions, sustainability will rule the future. And Gucci lead designer Alessandro Michele recently announced that he was slowing down its fashion cycle and reducing the numbers of shows. 3D systems such as Clo 3D, Rhino, SolidWorks, we're able to make samples without even making samples. We're able to sell from pre-sale and get orders on stuff that doesn't have to make a whole load of samples or for our supply chain. So again, pre-COVID, I don't know if we would have done that so fast. Design for sustainability, I can't even say it now, considerations. So these are the things that I ask our design teams before we start a design process. Has the design considered the manufacture, the materials? Are they sustainably produced? Are they responsibly sourced? Are they limiting the use of coatings, restricted substances? Has the design considered recycling or reuse or lessening the potential of environmental impact? Has the packaging and freight been considered? Is the design easy, clean, durable, long-lasting? Or is there a repair program in place ensuring that fewer pieces of product end up being disposed of? Has the design concept considered optimized factory process or reduced energy consumption program? Is there a consideration to a practical end-of-life program for the concept? Does the design have minimal impact on the environment? And all of these questions, like, all you can do is ask them. We're all on a journey, and I think that no one is perfect. But what is so good is that people are coming out and being transparent about their supply chain and the way they design. And all you can do is do your best. Although I'm very aware this is very time limited. And that is it from me. So I think I'm now going to be, hopefully you have questions for me. Please have questions for me. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Katie. Really enjoyed that presentation, and so fantastic to hear about your journey from being underneath that drawing table, surviving the scalpel and ending up where you are now. And I'm sure there are going to be more and more exciting stories as you progress through the latter stages of your career.
Mark, I've still got the scar in my leg from the knife incident, and I look down at it now and I still think, oh, that's where the scalpel dropped into my leg. Happy days.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love your advice, well, lots of your advice. I particularly like the idea of breathing, which I think is really important. So, Katie, I'm just going to give you a second to take a breath. Obviously, you've been talking quite a lot with some really interesting stuff. And just as a shout out to everyone that's listening, we've got a couple of questions that have arrived into the Q&A box. Some really interesting questions coming there. But this is your opportunity, maybe your one and only opportunity to talk to Katie and get some advice about design and the potential for design in the future, for shaping the way that the fashion industry is, but also thinking about what it is that you want to get from your designing career and how you want to start. So please do put as many questions into that Q&A as you can. We'll try and answer, or we'll try and throw as many of those at Katie and get Katie to answer those as quickly as we can. So please do put in some questions and I will try to get through those as quickly as we can. But I was just thinking, Katie, in terms of, just a personal question really, in terms of your career path, how has the world of design and the fashion industry changed since you started, and could you highlight any key points in that journey that you really think is really important in terms of the way that the industry has gone?
I think it's changed completely. I think from when I started, fashion was even different. Fashion was about frivolity. It's about humor. It was about actually it was about actually showing yourself and bringing your whole self. If you think about fashion now, it's really gone through a massive journey because, I feel like that it can become genderless. It can be whatever you want it to be. It takes in diversity, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think as well, the way we made samples, the way we cut fabric, the way that we tested so much, and so much went to waste. And I feel like now everything we do, there is a purpose behind it. it felt much more, you could make anything, you could do anything, and it wouldn't matter and it wouldn't harm the planet. And now I think the concentration is really on making stuff that matters, and making the stuff that matters change people's lives. Yeah, all the stuff that I did with Christian Lacroix, it was like just so much jewel and bedazzled, and even just the way that fashion changes, you know, it changes so quick. And I think as well, in my time, I've designed quite a lot of things, and just the way that trends go and colour goes and seasons change and shapes change, but then they come back, but in a different form. And I think everything is on a cycle, and it is cyclical, but I also think that shapes change and colour palette change and taste change. When I was growing up, my mum had a purple dining room and it had green doors. I mean, when was that cool? Like, and in the 70s it was, but when is it going to come back? We put purple and green again together? I'm not sure. But I look forward to that time again.
It's great. This just reminded me that my father had a purple kaftan.
Did he?
And used to walk around the streets of Birmingham wearing that. I think maybe, Katie, we might be giving away too much of our personal information here. I'm going to pick up one question, really nice question actually that's come in, and I do encourage everyone to keep throwing these questions in there. And it might be too early in the session to ask this question, but really nice question about what piece of advice would you give your younger self? What would be the best piece of advice that you would wish you'd had when you were starting off in your career to have made a difference in terms of the direction you were going in, or just to get a feel for how you could have actually accelerated your career?
I think that I was quite not lucky, but having a parent die quite young, I think makes you actually think that what's the worst that can happen. And so in so many ways, when I was 21, even though it was the worst thing that could happen in my life, I feel like it taught me a lot, because then I became not scared. I'm not scared to ask questions, not scared to raise my head above the parapet in many ways. I always put my work in front of people that perhaps didn't want to see it, but I thought that they might enjoy it or engage with it. I think that if I knew what I knew now, I would have been perhaps a kinder teenager to my parents and not be a pain in the arse that I was. And I think that's really truthful. But in terms of, I just think now when I see all the stuff that there's out there, like all the podcasts, all these things that you can actually speak to people virtually, and you don't have to actually go and stand outside their offices. Most people can get in front of someone or get on a podcast and ask someone questions, turn up to a webinar and actually get involved with a company that they want to work with quite easily. I didn't have that. And so if there's something that you want and something that you think you're good at, then I think that there is endless opportunities to get in front of that person or that audience. And I didn't have those opportunities, and I'm gutted that I had to put myself on a Sega bus trip to be able to get to half the designers and make an absolute fool out of myself half the time. And you don't have to do that. You can literally go to webinars, podcasts, and email and type and text and Instagram, and I didn't have that. And so my advice would be, if there's something that you want, if there's a company that you want to work for, if you're finding it hard to get engagement, then show up to them and don't hide yourself.
I think that's a great piece of advice. And, I think there's two things you talked about there, is asking questions. And I think having the confidence to go and ask questions is really important, isn't it? So you can learn from others and get yourself out there. But also being aware of your own self, your own USP, that unique selling proposition that you have about yourself, and having the confidence to be able to communicate that. And as you say, there's nothing quite being doorstepped. I mean, I know that's happened to me quite a number of times in the past, and it's incredibly hard to say no to someone when you're looking them straight in the eye. So, you know, some really interesting things that have changed, I guess, over time. But ultimately, it still just comes down to asking questions and being able to engage with people.
And just get involved with competitions, get involved with projects. If you feel like you've got a good idea, then draw it up and get in touch with the company, get in touch with the person, get in touch with whoever it is, and just show them the good idea and just say, look, I think this would be incredible. What have you got to lose is the biggest thing.
Just a door shutting in your face, and then you go to the next door, don't you? And
then
I think,
you go to the, then you go to the pub, and then go to the next one. Absolutely fine.
Just really interesting to get your view as well, Katie. Just again thinking about your experience, and particularly your broad experience of all those different brands that you've worked with and are working with now. How do you think design is going to change in the future? And you know, you talked about I really like that thing you talked about, you know, making moments matter, and that value that fashion has in terms of making those connections. Do you see that the function of fashion and the function of designers is going to stay the same in the future, or are we going to see a different way for designers to work and to connect with their the customers that are out there?
I hope that there's always fashion, because I absolutely love it. I love looking at fashion. I love looking at catwalks. I love looking, but I think it's going to be very different. I think it will probably go seasonless and less seasons, so that the seasons just overcross. That's happening now anyway. You know, if you look at footwear, boots are worn all year round. You know, when I was growing up, Dr. Martens boots were predominantly worn in winter. Now they're worn all the time. You know, it doesn't matter. You don't have to. And you can wear sandals with socks. It doesn't matter that it's winter. I feel like there's going to be, I think it will be seasonless. I think that technology has enabled and is enabling us to be much slicker with our operations, to get direct customization and products direct to consumer that are maybe limited editions or specially made for them. I think that even the way we sample and the way that we have our supply chain have taken out so much backwards and forwards to the factory. And so things become, you have to be sharper with your measurements and your technology, and all of the stuff like Clo 3D and Rhino and SolidWorks and avatars and all of this stuff has really enabled such an absolutely exciting future for the I suppose apparel space, be it fashion, outdoor, sport, whatever you're into. It has really, I think, ignited such excitement, and I feel, I love that when I see something and I haven't had to wait, you know, 3 weeks to see it come back from the factory, that actually I see it straight away because we've put it into a program and it looks real. And last year, before COVID started, I went to the Adobe Max conference in LA, and there was this avatar, and you could hold it in your hand and spin it around and touch it, and it wasn't even there. And it blew my mind, because I was like, oh my God, it's so exciting. So I feel like being a craftsman, being a designer is so exciting at this point, because we are on a precipice of change, of actually technology, craft and design, and science, all working together as one. And that has never in my imagination has happened as it is now. And it's just, I feel, at the start of something incredible.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, some of the technology about personalizing fashion, and this idea that we can have supply chains that, instead of doing mass production, are doing mass customization. So we get that uniqueness. So that uniqueness you were talking about in terms of secondhand clothing, maybe we're going to see more of that coming through, and meeting the needs, the individual needs of fashion.
Yeah, consumers. Totally. And it's always nice to feel like you've got a one-off, that you've got a special, and that you're the only one that's going to turn up in that, or you're the only one that's got that limited edition. And it's so lovely when you because that's my biggest fear. If I have a fear, it is actually turning up to something and I've got the same frock on as someone else or the same shoes.
Happens to me all the time. I'm part of the same clan.
I can tell that, Mark. I feel like that's going to happen to you a lot.
Well, thank you for that. I take that as a vote of confidence. Just talking about this idea of the value of fashion and individualness. One of the questions that's coming on the chat, which is quite an interesting question, it's a common question that we hear about fast fashion, the impact of fast fashion on sustainability, and this accusation that fast fashion, the obsession is with young consumers. I'm just going to slightly turn that question on its head a little bit and just talk about the positive things that fashion brings to young consumers in particular. Is this idea of self-esteem and self-identity, and it's part of that personality. And I just wonder sometimes whether you think that, when people talk about fast fashion in a negative way, we sometimes forget that fashion has a really important role in terms of, particularly for younger people, of building self-esteem and self-identity. And I just wonder if you had any views about how we get that balance right between not having too much stuff, but having enough for people to actually build their personalities.
I think it's, well, we all know what that endorphin feeling's like when we've bought something and we're delighted with our purchase. I think if the bigger companies can actually think about their people and the planet and sort out their supply chain, then I think, why not? Although saying that, I think it's just about I do feel like if we all thought that we could buy less and actually survive on it and buy something that's really, really good and really, really cool, rather than just buying for the sake of buying, and getting them endorphin moments and making them endorphin moments as special, or not just about frivolous fashion. Now I do worry about, because I want our planet to be healthy, but I also worry about mental health, and I also worry about people actually different pay scales and people's affordability, and sustainability still really isn't cheap. But at the same time, when something's so cheap, sometimes you wonder, what was the supply chain? What are the enablers to make it that cheap? So my advice really is, try to buy less. Try to live in a life where actually, if you really, really want it, perhaps leave the shop, go back out and think about it before you come back in and buy it. And if it's still winking at you, because I literally am the queen of having stuff wink at me, and then I have to go out and sort of really feel if I need it, because I think that companies have invested a lot of time making these what am I trying to say? There's a lot of livelihoods at stake, basically, in a supply chain, and I don't think half of us really think about them, but the factory that's making whatever the clothing or whatever the footwear or whatever the electronics that you're making, somewhere that's someone's livelihood. And so just to pull out of a factory, just to suddenly stop supply chain, just to suddenly go somewhere else because it's sustainable, isn't also the answer. So the issues, there's not a one fix answer to this problem. And but what we need to do is be kind to each other, and to make sure that when we are buying something or thinking about something or about to purchase something, that we actually do it for the right reasons. And it's very easy to forget about the person that's actually been making that item and where they currently live and what their current situation is.
A very important point to take on board there, isn't it? 120 million farmers around the world dependent on people buying cotton, and they grow cotton because it generates the best income for them. So we have to be really careful about the implications and consequences of the decisions we make, and particularly with the impact of COVID, we've seen significant changes in the way that we're connected as designers and the industry, how we're connected to those people who are reliant on all this coming through.
But I think that even though you having COP26 on our doorstep, I think, and the sustainability goals, I think it's actually starting to put it right into people's front of mind, which can only be a good thing. You know, whether they act on it or not, it's actually giving it a voice. And when you actually put we've all got our part to play, I think, and it's not just down to the big companies, it's not just down to government, it's down to us as well. And we've all got our part to play. And if we can all play that small part, then I think that it would be for the greater good.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. The joint responsibility across all parts of society. Just thinking of that though, a really nice question that also has just come in, and please, we've still got another sort of 10-15 minutes of Q&A time. So if you have got any questions for Katie, do feel free to put them into the Q&A box, and I'll try to get to them as quickly as we can. And this question is really thinking about how the industry has always been about innovation and always been about novelty and bringing new things. And the question is really about, how do you think that the future is going to change for the industry? And maybe thinking about how we rethink the fashion system in terms of how we engage. And I know you started to touch on that a little bit in terms of maybe we need to be buying less but buying better. But just a really interesting question about the fashion system as a whole and how you see that changing over the next few years.
I definitely think it's going to change. I mean, if you think it's changed in the high street, if you think about, we used to go to the high street to buy our stuff, whatever that may be. I think if you think about how councils have then moved a lot of high street big shops out of town, so then we've had to drive to them. And then our high streets have been absolutely, I suppose, pillaged by COVID, and then high rates on the shop space. And then, so if you think about our shopping habits and our fashion habits, they have totally changed. Even think about the amount of trainers and casual wear that we've been wearing, and I was the person that was literally still getting dressed every day in a frock, just putting it out there. I have worn trainers, yes, but I literally love a frock. So fashion has changed, but like I said earlier, it's cyclical, it goes in cycles. And I think our high streets have changed, the way we shop online has changed, the way that we actually buy perhaps hopefully less. I think there's a more in terms of what we're doing in terms of sampling and actually selling and by avatars and showrooming. So actually you just go to one amazing place where everything's in a room and perhaps you click on it and get it next day, rather than actually it being stored or stocked on site, that you actually try it on an avatar, or you actually try it in store somewhere. I think experiences are going to be so important to brands, to actually make sure you bring, when people do go shopping, that the experience they give their consumers is incredible, and that they come out thinking, yes, that's the brand for me, because they actually tick all the boxes and have the same, they resonate with the consumers. And in doing that, you need to make sure that you create these experiences that engage people, and so that you buy products and you get them perhaps next day to your door. So you don't have all this stock, you can pre-order, you're not making loads of samples up, maybe they're customized for you. I think definitely the high street is going to be a place which is going to inspire us and engage us, rather than just being a whole load of shops that literally have the same stuff in. I think my dream would be that you went to a high street and every high street across the UK was actually different and had stuff from local artists, local designers, but maybe even if it wasn't local, it actually was local in terms of like it's a version for you and for the customers and your county or your city or your global town. So I definitely think that the way we shop, the way we design is going to change, is changing. You've seen
it's 15 hours.
Oh, sorry, that's my clock. It's our high street are hopefully coming back, and they'll come back stronger, and they'll come back as places that engage and invigorate and delight people. And maybe it's not just about shopping, it's about other activities, eating, drinking, playing with each other, like having social interactions, enjoying each other's company and enjoying seeing other people, because I think most of us are inspired by other people and what they're wearing and how they engage with others, and how as society we love human engagement. I'm absolutely inspired when I see other people and that I'm connecting with them.
And that's a really important part of fashion, isn't it? That the human species is very social, and fashion and the clothes we wear is the function that fashion provides is that connection with other people. It builds those connections. And I'm just very wary of time. We've got still some questions to get through. Some very diverse questions being thrown out here, Katie. So we're going to keep you on your toes here.
Thanks. Thanks. Question answers.
So one attendee has wondered if you could provide any advice for a new designer or someone that's running a small business on how they want to share their work and make that connection, but ensure that they're protected. So essentially, larger organisations don't copy without giving due reflection on where it's come from. Do you have any experience of that or any advice that you could provide?
To be fair, I think most, I would say the companies that I work with, and most of them are my competitors, I think they wouldn't think twice of actually stealing work. But I don't know who you're talking about, but my advice would be is to get in contact with them, say that you've got a good idea, perhaps give them a snippet if you're worried, and just say it would be great to chat and perhaps talk about my idea. I think if you don't get them that way, have a look what webinars, what podcasts, what things they're on, or if there's a representative from that company attending. And then you can always, you don't have to send stuff over the internet, or send a PDF. Maybe send a teaser one, or maybe send something that's actually a piece of paper that actually is in an envelope that you can open, so that you've got like a stamp on it, or a copy mark, or something that actually has got your name and your date and when you designed it on, and keep a copy of that. If you're worried about non-disclosures and transparency and people stealing, I think that most of the companies that I know would absolutely love to be, I would love to see your ideas if you've got an idea that you want to show me and you think it's relevant. And you could just email me over a teaser, and then perhaps I could ring you and we could share a screen, and then you can take me through your work. But I mean, I don't know many companies that would want to steal. I think that it's kudos when someone gets a really cool designer, craftsperson coming to them with an amazing idea, and there's nothing better to seeing. My thoughts, there's nothing better seeing when people have succeeded in life and that they've actually come up with an idea and they've got credit for it, because that's the joy of design, surely, not to steal other people's work.
Yeah, and my experience of the industry is, if it does happen where your design has been taken, often it's an accident that's happened there sometimes. But I think it's a peculiarity of the British that this is a particular problem. My advice that I give to most people is, if you have any concerns about whether someone's going to be taking your idea, whether it's a design idea or an innovative idea, be very clear from the outset what your expectations are. That I'm going to talk to you about my design idea, but it's my idea, it's my design, and if you want to use it, an expectation of some sort of quid pro quo, something for something. So hopefully that alleviates some of the concerns that some people might have about that. We are running a bit short on time now. I'm going to try and get through a few more questions, but if you have got a question, do feel free to stick them in the chat room, and we will try to get through them. One question that's come in, and it relates to sustainability, but I think also relates to the work that you've already talked about with some of your brands at Pentland, about improving the sustainability by improving the design and quality and durability of products. And this question is basically said, at university we're taught about these things, But how important do you think durability and quality of design is for larger businesses? Do you have examples of how within your brands durability and that aspect has been built into product?
Yeah, I think that Berghaus is a brilliant example of a brand that has a lifetime guarantee on their products, and they have repair house. So if it is broken or your rucksack has seen better days, if you're like me, I've had my Berghaus Rockstar rucksack since I've probably had it 25 years. It's gone halfway around the world with me. I blooming love it. It's had special moments with me, and I don't want it to break. And so I always send it back to Berghaus. And again, Speedo is another great example of having swimwear that lasts through water. It's just an incredible brand for actually making products that last. And I do think it's important, because you don't want to keep buying stuff that actually that doesn't last. And Endura as well, when our cycle brand, I mean, they've been doing repairs as well, I think for 15 years. So, and their factory is in Livingston in Scotland. So again, I think brands that actually build that into their design process. And even now, I think for technology, I think a law's coming where things do need to actually have the ability to be repaired. And, so many times it can't be a thing where it's easier to buy new. It just can't be, especially when you love it, and I think so many brands have built stuff almost to break in the past. And I think it's so much more, it's so beautiful if you can build stuff to last and to mend.
And of course, it's all part of that sort of relationship that a brand has with their consumer, isn't it? About, for certain brands, it's vitally important to have that durability, that longevity of products, and it's not just about design; it's about the ethos of the brand, almost, isn't it?
Well, we all know how annoying it is when we've got something that we love and it breaks, and we don't want to we don't want to buy new, and quite often we do want to repair it or replace it, replace it with and it just make it better. And that's why brands like Dyson did so well when they first, because I think they were one of the first almost white goods brands that actually you were able to get someone round to repair it, and someone round to, or you could actually fix it yourself. You could buy the parts yourself. And look how we've changed now, that it's the right thing to do.
And it's interesting with Dyson that they didn't just appear on the industry map within 5 minutes. It took Dyson 20 years to take his idea and turn it into reality. So this is all about no quick wins here. A lot of the time, it's all about perseverance.
Well, they always say, didn't it? Taken me 25 years to be an overnight success.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brands don't build. That's the thing. It's like people think that brands are built like that, and they're not. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of work that goes into building brands, and actually maintaining brands, and actually making brands that are still relevant.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple of minutes left, and actually there's 3 or 4 questions all come in around the same sort of questionnaire here, Katie. Is new designers, graduates are finding it really difficult to connect with companies. They often will send something on LinkedIn but never get a response, or they send in their designs and never get any sort of feedback, and people finding it very disheartening. Just wonder if you've got any advice for people around that particular aspect.
Don't give up. Get it back in front of them. Like, people are really busy, so sometimes like this week I've been on the road, so it's really hard to pick up emails and to be driving and to be meeting people and to be seeing stuff. So sometimes there is a genuine excuse, and sometimes things that are, you think, because they're so important to you, they should be important to the other person. But you know what, if you don't give up and you keep sending it and you keep like putting it back under their nose, and I keep seeing that email, it gets to the point where I'm like, I need to answer whoever it is, because you're actually doing my head in, and I need to answer them. And do you know what? I will answer you. Hopefully you'll get an answer from me without you doing my head in, but I would totally, if there's something you want to do, you have no excuse not to be able to. You don't even have to be embarrassed, because you don't have to actually see them. You know, you can actually just keep putting an email in. I wrote to you last week. Did you get to this? Have you seen this? I really would love you to look at my work, you know, and you can be polite. You don't have to be like, just be polite, be kind, and just keep putting it back in front of their nose, because they will answer you, they will get to you, or someone will get to you, you know. And even if it's just a no thank you, I do pride myself that I think that I get back to everyone, even if it's I haven't got the bandwidth now, or there isn't a position now, but I will get back to you. So I just think that you've got to be mindful that people are busy, and that you might not be in the forefront of their mind, but at the same time, you literally have no excuse not to keep putting that email in, not to maybe even find out a phone number, to give them a ring. And I did this, like, I was #1 stalker in the 80s and it was trickier then. So yeah, just keep putting it in, don't be disheartened, and ask for feedback.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, that's critical with all of these things. At the end of the day, the very worst thing that someone can say to you is stop stalking me, leave me alone. But that perseverance is really important. And as you say, being polite, but being determined to make those connections. Yeah.
Ambition and having an ambition and having a focus, as long as you do it in the right way, and that you're kind and that you're respectful, then there's no reason why you cannot keep just sending that email if they're not answering. But remember, just be kind and respectful.
And it sounds like that's a perfect way to finish this particular session, Katie, in this idea of being kind and being respectful. I think that, you know, when people talk about how do we define sustainability, kind and respectful is one of the really important parts of that, but also, you know, within industry as well, although we all think it's a dog industry, actually that it is all about being respectful and being kind to everyone. So Katie, really fantastic to hear about your career, and also to hear about some of your opinions about the industry and where we're going. And thank you everyone for all of those questions that came in, and apologies we couldn't get through all of them. But we'll blame Caroline for that, for not giving us enough time. So Caroline, over to you.
Yes, I'm going to interject and say, well, thank you very much, Katie and Mark, for giving up your time this afternoon. There's been so much invaluable advice there, really key to hear. You know, persistence does pay off. Really fascinating to hear about your journey, Katie, you know, transitioning from studies into industry, and what a fascinating career it has been. And thank you to Mark for generating such an insightful discussion, putting all those questions on behalf of our attendees, and again just highlighting the complexities of you know, what sustainability really means, and just how many aspects there are, and you know, just how many ways we can work to try and contribute as we move forward in our careers.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has that I didn't get to on the chat, if you'd like to email them over to me or ask me, or whatever's easiest, really.
Yeah, so perhaps if you email those to our secretary, the details are on our website, and Sue can pass those on to Katie. Yeah, that we really appreciate that, Katie. Thank you. So we're going to break for 10 minutes now. So we're going to be back sharp at 25 minutes past, and then we'll look forward to showcasing the award winners and the work. So we'll be back with you in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.